Welcome back to Friday 15. With me in the studio today is Brian Tenney. His official title is Director of Commissioning at Karpinski Engineering. But the reason why we have him here is because every time I've spoken to him, he has such a sensible, practical attitude and knowledge about smart buildings. We had to have him come on and share what he knows. So welcome, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Dina. Glad to be here.
Good. All right. So we're going to get right to brass tacks or pipes or things that are made out of metal, basically, the metal analogy. So that is very basic. A building is a pipe, gas pipe, water pipe, pipes, and they're not very smart. And somehow we have contrived this whole ideal that you could get these pipes and make them smart. And at some point, it starts sounding a little like a pipe dream. So it's all good, all working in harmony, and then the harmony becomes this kind of cacophony of a pipe dream. So walk us through it. Tell us what's smart. What's too smart? Is there such a thing as too smart?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So being in this industry for over 25 years and working in a lot of smart buildings, we've seen very successful, and then we've seen some that had a lot of opportunities. So the level of smart is a great question. It's really, the planning phase is very, very important to having a smart building. There's tons of technology out there. You can fill your building with sensors that do all kinds of things, and that technology changes every 2 months. There's new things added onto it. So the biggest thing that we find is what are you really going to use, right? It's that planning phase. It's very important. So let's match the smartness to something that integrates with your operations and organizations. Smart buildings, really, we see it as 3 different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Even standard factory controls have a lot of smarts built into it nowadays. So even if you're not connected to a huge dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
you can have not integrated controls that are doing smart things. You just may not have that through the single pane of glass, right? So our recommendation.
Okay. So just to kind of fracture that a little bit. If you have a system, HVAC, lighting, you have some controls on it, you would classify that as smart.
Yeah, that's a level. That would be your entry level of smart.
Entry level smart. Okay, good. All right. Level up. What happens next?
Yeah. So once we, get those systems in and get those, properly working and programmed as, it's going to help your building and your occupants, the next level would be to have those systems communicate a little bit. The great example is your vacancy sensors, occupancy sensors can tie into your HVAC to reduce
Mm-hmm.
ventilation rates, right? So the example again is, about 70% of your heating energy is conditioning your outdoor ventilation. So that's your low-hanging fruit, right? To get that ventilation controlled. The next level, if you go to level 3,
Okay.
now we're tying in a lot more systems. It could be the access control. It could be your all the systems are actually communicating and they're doing something with the signals, right? So it's actually interacting more with, your IT, your security,
Mm-hmm.
that can give us data, and then you can program that to, save you time, money, make it more comfortable, and really educate your staff. So that's really the 3 levels.
Okay, so smart system, 2 smart systems talking to each other through some type of single pane where you get some type of visibility. Smartest is
Yes.
Possibly, that means you're talking about really quite disparate systems, and then there's also some type of maybe automation triggering, some type of autonomy happening with the smart building.
Yes, and then that data is extremely useful. The more granular data you can get, the more that'll help your ESG reporting. We have digital twins. It's really an exciting field. It's really taking off. You can go as high of a level as you want.
Right.
The caution is make sure the things you're doing are actually applicable to your organization, right? So a lot of times I see, let's put as many smart sensors in as we can. What are you going to do with them?
Right. So if you do that, you're likely to end up with a pipe dream and a lot of sensors,
Exactly.
not doing much. Okay.
Yep.
So Okay, so let's get SMART. So SMART, if anybody knows a little bit of marketing, it's an acronym, and I don't know it, but I should read it off. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Don't ask me about it. But basically, it's about just getting really practical, have a real practical goal. So with that framework in mind, give us examples of some things that people can do right now to get SMART.
Yeah, so a lot of times, one of the other misconceptions is even if you have an existing building, you could add smarts to it. You don't have to have a brand new building to do it. So one of the examples that I like to give is we worked with a customer at a college campus in the last few years, and we just started by tying their gas meters in to a one pane of glass just to track your gas usage. So the great thing,
why did they have to do that? The gas is coming in. You're paying the bill. Why do you have to track it?
So it's good to track. One of the things that we like to, data is powerful. So these particular meters were pretty inexpensive to tie into a system. And what we wanted to do is this customer wanted to get into smart buildings and let's try something and see if it helps us. So this example is, in the summertime, they didn't have a lot of summer school at this particular college, but their gas bill in the summertime in one of the buildings was high, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we have the boilers turned off. We have, domestic hot water is not being used. So we were able to track that data with the utility company. And they actually found there was a gas leak from the utility company, and if you add that up over 10 years, it was in excess of $50,000, right? So that's how they got their feet wet. And wow, I didn't realize this little bit of data, and you always trust the utility company.
You do. Right? And you see that one big bill and you don't think to break it apart. And once they did break it apart, they could quickly see instantly one building is taking up X percent of the bill. There must be a problem.
Yep. So that got their feet wet, and now they're addicted to smart buildings.
Addicted.
So now they're adding sensors. And again, the planning from this way is let's find a problem and let's apply the smart building for a solution. And sometimes people do it the other way around. Mm-hmm. Let's add all these smarts. You got to maintain it. You have to be educated on how to view the data, right? Training. There's a lot that goes into having a successful smart building.
Let's give another example of something pretty attainable with two different systems working together. Like I'm thinking once again, say a school. You think about summertime in a school and the occupancy in it. How can you get SMART goals there?
Yeah. So one thing there, it's the first thing you have to do, and we use the example is I'm going to start with this. If you can drive a modern car with the cruise control, and all these sensors and data, you're driving your car, you don't even realize all the data that it's providing you. If you can learn to drive a car and looking out your windshield, right, and you see your speedometer as a piece of data, what 60 miles an hour feels like, right? And you're driving the car through the windshield, if your cruise control is working. The education piece is really you need to drive your building through your smart interface, your single glass. So, what does 400 watts per hour mean? What does that feel like? Do I have to worry about it? So one of the ways that in a school atmosphere, we've done some battle of the buildings and, really getting the kids to talk to the custodians and the facilities staff. A lot of these facilities maintenance people in schools are there because they're super dedicated to the community and their kids, right? They're not doing it because they're making, millions of dollars a year.
Right.
So if we can train the kids and they go to the facilities, custodians, facilities engineers and get them engaged to say, hey, what if we turn off blah, blah, blah all weekend because we don't use it? Now what 400 watts per hour feels like, how you can manage it, and you're educating everybody in the building on, I didn't realize if I turn this off or flip this light switch off, or if I ran the whole building in the summer instead of, just 4 rooms for summer school, what does that mean? What does it
mean? Right. Yes, because you often think, at least even in your own home, your dad says, turn off the lights, and you think to yourself, well, the grocery bill is so high. What am I going to save by turning off the light? I mean, and you have no sense of what it is. And I love your analogy about driving a car, because we have no sense because we have no data feedback.
Yes.
And when you drive a car, you're constantly giving yourself that feedback loop. You're looking at the speedometer, you're looking at the road, you're looking at everything, and everybody's doing it. You're doing it. And just imagine if you had that type of feedback loop in your building. And which brings me to this idea that often we think data is for the elites. You got to be kind of a data scientist to understand data, but everybody can drive a car.
Yes. And once you learn those simple things of how to relate it to something, the other great thing is, if you don't catch these things that are wasting you energy, sometimes it takes you 2 months before you pay the bill and there's nothing you can do about it. So being proactive, just like you're driving your car, a speed trap's coming up, right?
Right.
Something's happening. Being proactive and, knowing that you have an excess of energy somewhere, you still have time to do something about it, right? It's kind of like you get a speeding ticket, but you don't find out for 2 months later. There's nothing you can do about it.
It's that real-time behavioral change that happens when you have that visibility to the data. And I love that Battle of the Buildings, which means if you can even get kids to see that real time, do you know how much we saved yesterday on the lighting by just being that, compare that to the day before, and then, actually it adds up. It's not just cents, it's adds up to dollars, which adds up to school books, which adds up to many, many things.
Yep. Then they can share that data with the teachers, the staff, at home, and they can take this experience with them the rest of their life, right? Energy prices keep going up. There's lots of programs to teach kids about energy. You just have to, use those, and it's really a great thing.
Right. And I'm thinking as well, there is an element of smart buildings that's for new builds, that for new renovations or new zoning, and just thinking about that. I know that we discussed, even if you know that in the summertime your building occupancy goes down, why are you putting air conditioning on the whole building?
Yes.
It just kind of like right sizing things and thinking through things, and that's where you get that the smart goals for the smart.
Yes. And you need to know when to turn it off. In a school building, there's lots of things going on. There's, the facility staff are really working hard to get the building clean, waxed for the next year. But your smart building, if you program it right, you can satisfy their needs to ventilate the areas where they're cleaning, right? I'm not saying turn everything off, make everybody uncomfortable. It's only about kids, but that's another thing, to make sure you want programmed in that you can actually ventilate and, do things like that easily without having, but the only thing I can do is turn the whole building on.
Right. You've got options. Just if you have the right conversations, then you can make yourself options, which really brings to this idea of resources and recommendations is, so who has to be sitting at the table?
So
the
really,
smart table, yes.
Yeah, the smart table. I like that. So we bring in people from the receptionist. The receptionist knows every time the fire alarm goes off. They know every time the access control doesn't work. They're scheduling conference rooms, right? So they really, I like to bring the people closest to the work into the conversation, right? So it's not just the IT people and the, way up in the organization, making decisions. Let's turn that upside down, right? And when we do that, it's finding the people that understand all your building systems, right? So it could be an engineer, it could be a master systems integrator, it could be, somebody on the team, but it's finding that person that really understands how to make all of the equipment work together and not make the equipment not work by adding too much smarts, right? There are a lot of people get into traps where they have service calls on equipment because they tried to do things that sounded good on paper, but the equipment you have is not capable of doing it, even though the smart interface may seem like it could. So it's really finding that person, whoever they work for, or whatever position, that really understands how to do the synergy with a smart building, and then we can build from there.
Right. Is that a unicorn person? Is that what type of
It depends. So I like I've working on this for so long and seeing all the different disciplines and mechanical, electrical, fire systems. I think I have a pretty good understanding, but I'm an engineer,
Right.
it could be an MSI, master systems integrator, and have the same knowledge, right? So it's really putting the right people in the right seats on the bus, and, planning is the most important.
Right. Electric bus, hopefully.
Yes, electric school bus.
Electric bus, yeah.
Make sure you're buying a bus that fits your needs. Don't buy
Yes.
a 50-seat school bus where you're driving 10 kids back and forth.
Yes.
Buy
Right.
something that matches, right?
I love that take-home message. Just make your goals match your needs, and then you're good to go. So here we are. Here's Karpinski. There's an article on the website. They have a lot of resources, and they're really they really are motivated by smart buildings, and we love sharing a message with all of us.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Tina.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.